there is a fundamental underlying structural overlap between what you do during a game and what you do or what you should be doing during education.
Let's look at the definition of the term gamification. Quite simply, gamification uses the elements of games to motivate and engage the learner. From an instructional context, gamification is using game-based mechanics, aesthetics, and game thinking to engage people, motivate action, promote learning, and solve problems in a non-game context. Additionally, gamification can be further refined into two types: structural gamification and content gamification. Content gamification is the application of game elements, game mechanics, and game thinking to alter content to make the content more game-like. Common implementation of this type of gamification would be to add the elements of story, challenge, curiosity, mystery, and characters to content to engage the learner. An example of content gamification in a learning context is when the learner takes on a role and participates within the context of a story.
When I think about gamification for higher education and where we can go with this, I think the one take-home message I have for you is really looking at the structure. I don't come at you from an angle of fun and inspiration and wonderful. I have a really boring take. I take a game, I look at the underlying structure and mechanics, and then make it learning.
Role-playing. What is role-playing? So role-playing, I'm not going to go into what role-playing is because you have dictionaries and the internet, but role-playing in terms of games, you were playing through it as you would experience it. You know, I'm going to do exactly what I would do in this situation. But maybe you've taken a few seconds and gone, actually, I don't think my character would do that. I think the guy that I'm playing would go down that terrifying corridor, but me with common sense would probably just stay here and wait it out by the bonfire. That's role-playing. You've been role-playing the whole time.
A role play is a created situation in which students deliberately act out or assume characters or identities that they wouldn't normally assume in order to accomplish learning goals. Role-playing is an engaging way for students to learn by doing, as it asks them to actively apply course concepts and understanding to embody a different perspective.
Using role-playing games for learning isn't something new. It's been around for a very long time. But what is often talked about as the starting point is in the early 19th century when the army in Prussia started doing a board game, tabletop game for their officers to learn battlefield tactics. This was called Krigsspel, aka wargame. So, when does the learning happen? We can talk about three different areas here. Pre-game, before, mid-game, during, and post-game, after. So before could be when we are reading up on something to prep for the lab. And during could be seeing the cause and effects of your actions. But what is really important here is after. Without the after, there is a high chance that your participants come out having learned totally different things, and or something totally different than you had planned, or maybe they didn't even learn anything. The educational processing is always done in relation to the learning objectives. Often it contains things like connection, to reflect on the experience in relation to the learning objectives, abstraction, relating the takeaways from the role-playing game to concepts or experiences in the wider world outside of the role-playing game, and contextualization, giving added context about the topic to enhance the learning. A lot of the time, these things happen in direct relation to a game, in a facilitated after discussion, for example, but they can also happen over a longer period of time in a less facilitated process.
The fan communities I've spent much of my career studying write stories not because they want to get in the industry or they want to make money, but because they love telling stories and they want to tell stories to each other.
Maybe that would work in the classroom. Let the kids have choices along with 4 other C's: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. Actually, over 10 years ago, the National Education Association identified those last 4 C's on the list as essential 21st century skills that kids should learn. So I believe our brains are wired for the 5 C's. And since they're wired for the 5 C's, that authentic learning will happen when kids are allowed to engage in the 5 C's. And not just learning, but I think kids will enjoy a classroom setup like this and even be inspired.
Over the years, I've seen students develop greater empathy and understanding for others after experiencing a new point of view. Role plays promote significant learning in the human dimension domain of the taxonomy of significant learning because they require students to reflect upon the relationships and interactions they have with others.
In the short term, it's about getting this stuff in the hands of teachers who will want to make a difference and giving them the validation and encouragement they need to keep fighting the good fight on behalf of the new media literacies.